Hi, and welcome to another episode of Help Nobody Told Me. I'm Shannon Johnson. I am a realtor in the North Shore of Chicago, and I am lucky enough to be co-hosting today with our friend and team member, Jordan Kagan, the Man of Silver.
Thank you, Shannon. We're lucky today to have Michael Giese. Can't wait for you all to hear how he got the nickname or his business name, Rent-A-Son. But I've known him at least 5 years. I'm glad to have him as a friend. I'm glad to have experienced his honesty in helping with my own condo. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us here on our episode of Help No One Told Me.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been the handy guy for how many years now?
Since 1996. So I'm finishing up my 29th year at the end of the summer. So
Wow.
yeah.
So how did you get started? How did this happen?
The genius I am, I quit college. I was living in my mom's basement, and one of her friends wasn't getting a job, and one of my mom's friends needed help because she'd hired a handyman who never showed up. So I went over there and helped her, and she paid me, and she was a recent divorcee. And she said, you can make money doing this. I'm like, no way.
Light bulb moment.
Right? I didn't believe her. She said she only had daughters, so she needed a son. She'd rent me. She named me Rent-A-Son. And that was it. I went over to Deerbrook Mall, and they used to have a theater there, and a little vending machine for $5. You got 80 business cards. So I printed 80 business cards for $5, and I was Rent-A-Son.
That's great.
80 business cards for $5. Let that sink in.
Yes. 1996.
So the next question I have is, I know you've been a scout leader.
Yes.
Were you a scout as a kid growing up?
I was not. I was in an organization called Civil Air Patrol, which is legally an auxiliary of the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot, but I tested colorblind. So pretty much I felt like my options were, be a bush pilot in Alaska or fly drugs out of the Bahamas. I really wasn't interested in either one of those. So that's about when I quit school, because that's what it kind of became official.
So which scouts are you in? What's your position? And is there some good connection with being a handyman and being a scout leader?
There is. It's kind of that your center of influence circle, absolutely, because it expands. You meet new parents, new people. So yeah, definitely there. I would say. Anything you do in the community is going to affect you as a business person. So that's going to go out there for sure.
But you Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts?
Both. Actually, Saturday the 17th is my last day as a Cub Scout leader. I had been the Cub Master for Pack 35 for 8 years.
Good for you. And good for those kids.
Yes, my youngest is crossing over into her troop. So, but then I have 3, she's in a troop really already, but I'm still a Cub Master, and then my 2 boys are each in troops, and then my oldest daughter is an Eagle Scout, and she's in college.
Wow.
So yeah.
Awesome. My husband's an Eagle Scout, so
cool.
I always get all
it's a lot of work, man.
It sounds like the two of them would meet and have hit it off well.
I'm guessing.
Probably.
So one of the things that's interesting, and I think that it probably applies to you. As realtors, we always say we're part therapists, because we have to get over the emotional humps and everything.
Yes.
How does that apply to you when you go into someone's home as a handyman?
When I started out, in my first few years, I started joking around that I should get a therapist license because I could charge more. Because you're in their house, it's kind of like even when I was in college and we went on long car drives, like they just start telling each other stories. Like you don't know with anybody maybe who knows them, and so people just feel safe just unloading on you. And so sometimes it's just letting people talk.
You're just a safe space.
It's just a safe space. It's sometimes they ask for advice, and then I have to be careful with that because I also don't want to give anybody bad advice. But yeah, it's just you're there, you're in their home, and you're in their personal space. Sometimes you're in their bathroom, you're in there. So yeah, a lot of people just trust you, and or they have something going on, and they just need to get it out.
How many of your clients are seniors? I'm just curious, like percentage-wise, half, more?
Probably, I'd say a third are seniors, and at least a third are divorced single women.
Single women.
Divorced or single.
Yeah.
Unattached.
So let's talk about, we talked about how you became a rent-a-son,
Yes.
in quotes,
Quote, rent-a-son, yeah.
due to a divorced woman.
Mhm.
I know statistically women tend to outlive men.
Yes, they do.
Statistically, I am not in the loop of being the better one of being handy when it comes to fixing the home.
Right.
At least when I owned a home with my ex-wife. But with that being said,
Sure.
a woman becomes a widow.
Mhm.
That her husband was in charge of doing all the maintenance all these years.
Right.
So, what often do you see? What should be maintained, and what do you often see as the most neglected thing? And what are like some of these effects? If I know, like with a car, you're supposed to do an oil change. That's really important. Let's
Right.
take it to a house. What should be done, and what do you see as being the biggest red flags, and maybe the consequences if you don't do it?
Biggest thing, like a lot of times they don't know about changing furnace filters, especially if their husband just took care of it. If they called the service to do stuff, the husband wasn't handy, then they just call somebody. Like they just continue to call somebody. But if the husband took care of stuff, then yeah, there's things like furnace filters don't get changed, dryer vents don't get cleaned out, things like that. The way something has to go wrong. There's a kind of a leak under the sink, and they're just not sure, and it depends on the personality though too. If they notice that leak and they're very particular, they'll call on it right away. Like as soon as they detect anything wrong, they'll call on it. But other ones who just live in the house, they had somebody clean, and they had people take care of the house, or the husband took care of stuff. They don't know. So it kind of depends on the situation beforehand, and it is very much when you have a married couple. Their memory is bigger because they recall on each other. It's kind of the husband goes, I like the Caesar salad here. Right? And the wife tells him,
They're better as a team.
Right, they're better as a team. I mean, however they fall in and divide up. In older couples, it's more traditional, but younger couples are much more mixed. Like you become the team.
I think when I actually got married, I'm not that old, but when I got married, I owned the toolbox.
Right. Oh.
Because my husband had rented most of his life, and I had owned a home, so I owned the toolbox. Now I let him do everything. I'm like, I'm married. It's all yours, baby.
I have some female customers who are actually very good at a lot of things. And if I'm coming over there, it's like, oh, this is going to be a big one, because they take care of the little stuff. Like, they do it all themselves. It's just something that's more than they're comfortable with, or just they got beyond what they know.
The secret is we know how to do a lot of things when our husbands aren't around.
Yes. Oh, they're huge. They're very, very
We don't tell our husband how much we can do.
Yeah. So a fire round of questions. Fire round. So what happens if you don't clean your dryer, your clothes dryer vents?
Okay. Sometimes inside the dryer you get a little fire, and if you don't have your dryer vent cleaned out, it'll run out your dryer vent and start your whole house on fire.
Okay.
So worst case scenario.
That's the worst case scenario.
And then I got a realtor for you. Never mind.
Yeah.
Next question also then goes in, how long does a hot water heater last? And how old is the average hot water heater in the houses that you go to?
I guess I don't really go look at their water heater unless they ask me to. I mean, I don't go parts of the houses where it doesn't relate to what I'm called there for. But hot water heaters, they say the average is like 15 years.
Yeah.
They really should last 20 years or more if you maintain them. You just gotta every year wash them out. You gotta go and put on a hose and just drain it and get all that sediment out, all the stuff that just makes it corrode even faster, that tank. Also, if you have tankless water heater.
I don't think most people really heard that, because I didn't know that.
Yeah. Tankless water heaters have to be done every year too, but that's a little more complicated because you got to run some chemicals through your tankless water heater. But yeah, those have to be done every year too.
I asked that question because way too many people find out that their hot water heater is past its lifespan, and when the basement floods,
That's usually when you find out you have a problem with your water heater.
Right.
It's when there's a flood.
If you find water around the floor around your water heater, just a little puddle, get it looked at right away, because that is very important. That's the precursor to the big explosion.
In the big scheme of things, they're not that expensive to replace.
Much less expensive.
Less than an
insurance
HVAC
deductible.
system or something. So
less than most insurance deductibles are now. Because most people have like 1% deductibles.
So I got the two of you here that are housing experts.
Yes.
One fixing houses, one selling houses.
That's right.
Do you think more basements flood due to storms and backups, or more from broken hot water heaters?
That's a good question.
In my opinion, I would say storms and backups.
Storms still, I'd still say storms.
But it was a tough question. It wasn't a quick answer.
Because around here, we have so many in the Midwest, we have basements and...
Chicago is swamp with smelly onions. That's what it means. Most of the North Shore is swamp. I mean, that's why everybody in Highland Park, you live in a swamp. They just put a bunch of dirt on it and said you're fine.
They just made it pretty.
They moved the swamp. Swamps don't really move. You're still low land. The North Shore, I would say it's more basements. And if you get out to rural areas, when I was younger, I lived on a farm, right? I mean, there's more hot water heaters out there than storm damage because you're in drier territory, more traditional farmland.
So one of the things that you talked about was aging couples and how we tend to rely on each other. And I see that in my own parents now that they're quite a bit older, really relying on each other, one mentally, one physically. They kind of balance each other out. When you come in and there's the husband that's still there and already always taken care of things, how do you juggle that dynamic? Because I'm sure he's looking over your shoulder.
Well, he's looking over my shoulder. Actually, I don't even mind that as much. I know some people that bothers them. I don't care. They have knowledge. Sometimes I get knowledge from them. I mean, they just can't do it anymore. So I love getting the knowledge. The big thing there is a lot of times I run into wives who yell at their husband, you can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. And they really don't realize they're belittling their husband. And so I usually pull the wife aside and say, look, you can't do that to him. He's already taking a shot in his pride by me being here. So we have to build him up and just say, hey, you worked hard, and you've really done well for the family, and you've earned the right to let somebody else do it for you.
He is the adopted son. Listen to him.
Yes. Thank you.
So, and same line of thinking, what kind of different abilities and responsibilities do you see change as couples age?
Let's see. It kind of depends who stays healthier longer. There are, it's just, I have actually the divorcee is married and she has a new husband now, but now he's going on, he's got kidney problems and they're having some problem with dialysis. He's supposed to be able to do it at home and all these things.
So
and he
really
he couldn't hardly do anything.
Yeah.
And so, she was taking care of everything for him and for herself. And she still does some work, and so it's, it was very hard, but they finally got his dialysis worked out, and he's doing much better. But it really depends who stays healthier longer, and they'll usually step up and take over stuff. It's kind of, I joke because my wife has a much lower threshold for dirty than me around the house, and it's just that's it. So she'll go clean stuff up, and I'm like, well, it wasn't bothering me as much. I was going to get to it later. Right?
That doesn't work for us. No.
Yeah. So it's a thing.
As you see couples aging, when there are adult children involved, what recommendations could you give to them as far as how to help them maintain safety in the home as their parents age and maintain the home without completely offending mom and dad?
Especially starting out. Mom and dad are like, I'm your parent. Stonewall. They really can do almost nothing outside of refer somebody to come in and help, and maybe the parents will call that person. And then at some point we get some parents who are just like, yeah, come on in and we'll take the help, and they kind of more what's going on. It's kind of the difference between progressive. It's just between my grandmother giving up her driver's license and my wife's grandmother giving up her driver's license. Like, my wife's grandma's like, nope, too scary. here's my driver's license, here's my car, I'm done. My grandma, both my grandmas, fought it tooth and nail. I mean, I was coming across, I was in Highland Park, and there was a car blocking a driveway, and they were blocking the crossing over, it was kind of a confusing intersection already. And I come up to it and somebody's got the intersection plugged up. It was my grandma. I was like, okay. So I pulled my truck out, kind of blocked a bunch of traffic so she could just leave, and then I just drove away. Like, I didn't even say hi. I knew she didn't want to talk to me or anything.
She was not going to.
But she was never going to give up her driver's license willingly.
When I had to handle the drive, my father was having some issues with blacking out, and he was like, I'm done. I'm not driving. I'm not going to black out at the wheel. I don't want to hurt anyone. And so he was easy. My mom, I finally looked at her doctor and said, you are telling her that she legally can't drive anymore.
Yeah.
And now your mom knows the truth and the rest of the story. Hi, Mom.
I'm like, she's not going to listen to me. She's going to listen to you. You tell her.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, I'm done.
Right.
Like, just put it in someone else's hands.
Absolutely. It's just, because you're the kid. And that's such a dynamic. And some parents are just like, okay, and they're accepting, and some will fight it tooth and nail.
Yep.
And it really, I don't know, it just must be in their deep nature. It just has to be in their deep nature.
I had a conversation. We had one of the heads or directors from the Northbrook Police Department we interviewed about a month ago. And I afterwards was at an event with him. And I talked about seniors and giving up their driver's license. He said, oh yeah, we have a mental health person with the Northbrook Police Department 3 or 4 times a year. They're called upon to go out to a house and evaluate a senior, maybe to see if they still are competent to drive, or we need to recommend a driver's test to the Secretary of State, because generally speaking, the kids aren't going to convince mom or dad to give it up if they don't want to.
Right.
But, if they're stopping at the green light.
Right, stopping at the green light, or just, and some things there are just some crazy intersections, where you have
it's just too confusing.
Yeah.
There are things that my parents have done for years and years and years, and suddenly I see my mother go to do something, and I'm like, wait, she can't figure out how to do that.
Right. Yeah, just they lose the dexterity in their fingers. You lose the reflex time. I mean, all that stuff.
Right.
And I know this just because I know this. At 25, we actually all start getting slower. It just progresses faster after 50 and 60 years old.
Well, I think at 30 we start losing muscle mass. So it's like,
you're right.
It happens so quickly. We have no idea.
Absolutely.
Along those lines, what are some of the upgrades and maintenance things that you've done in homes to safety-wise to help people?
Number one's grab bars.
Stay safe.
Grab bars in showers and around toilets, and that's probably the number one thing. There have been times where we've opened up doorways, so like if they became wheelchair bound, they could get through. What else? I'm trying to think of other things we've done.
And one of the simple ones we always tell people is get the rugs up off the floor.
Yeah. But yeah, they just pull those up. Yeah, so I don't ever get to be part of that. But put in thresholds. Get rid of. Get rid of that little trip steps that get in houses somewhere where they.
Do you install ramps?
I have installed one ramp ever, actually.
Are you kidding me?
One ramp, yeah. I don't know how I.
Somehow you got around that one.
That was my question.
I have a customer there. It's a house that houses adults who are autistic but high functioning, and they the fire alarm, brand new fire alarms. We replaced all the fire alarms because they were just starting to go off. Like they were getting old, so we just replaced them all. But still, one of them just went off in the middle of the night, and now you have 3 or 4 autistic adults there who are now all awake and heard this fire alarm go off, and they got to get them to settle down. It's like, because you can still get, and so I started researching into this. I'm like, just things like a change in humidity and temperature and just some of those things. And it was a time, it was the spring, so we had a huge change in temperature and humidity, and even though it's really a well-insulated house, it's got the 2 furnaces, 2 air conditioners and everything, but it just didn't keep up in that spot of the house, and the alarm went off anyways.
Yeah, that's
brutal.
That's not fun. And I think some of the new combo smoke detector carbon monoxides, they don't have batteries anymore, right?
They have a permanent battery. So they have a 10-year battery, and when the battery dies, you just change out a whole new one. And that's actually, I believe now, code.
Right.
Is the code they want. They just don't want people even forgetting to change their batteries, or it starts beeping. And so
you just take the battery out.
Right. They take the battery out.
So can you still do hardwired or the
every
permanent
hardwired
battery?
has a battery backup. So
because if the electricity goes out, it still needs to work.
Good point. Thank you.
You bet.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah.
You know why? Because help nobody told me.
That's right. That's right.
So after this, you've been at this for 29 years almost.
Yeah.
So what keeps you going? Why do you keep doing this?
It's kind of funny, but I do laugh because there used to be a commercial for an HVAC school. I don't remember the name of the school, but heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So that's the techs would come in and do your furnace stuff. And they were, trying to recruit people to come take the school. And one of the guys says, "You get to be the hero." And it's true, because a lot of times you come through and people are just stuck, and they got this problem in their house, and they need someone to come out, and you came out and you fixed it, and they're glad, and it's probably keeps you going. It's just the hero.
So is it just you, or do you have other?
I've been through the whole fluctuation, actually. I started out as just me, and then also being like a laborer, carpenter, whatever some crews needed, when I'd pick up with them and learn with them too. And that's part of my learning process. And then I went on, had a crew, and then I had 2 crews, and then we had 2008, and then I had me
right.
and doing other work, because there was just nobody was calling anybody, and Oprah Winfrey told everybody, don't spend money, right? If you have money, don't spend it. So people weren't doing the redecorating, people weren't doing stuff, and it just, I don't blame Oprah. I do believe she had the kind of thing in her heart. I want to make sure I say that.
It's interesting though.
But it's just, sometimes we have good intentions, and it makes things
2008
worse.
is when we had the big bust in real estate, and
yes.
that was before I was in real estate, but I got my interior design license.
Right.
And when we were finishing interior design school, we couldn't even find internships.
Right.
Because no one was doing anything with their homes. Everyone was just like, wait, hold on,
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't touch your home right now. Don't put any money in your home.
Don't put any money in your home. Yeah, it just killed everything.
Yeah.
And so, and then came back, had a roofing company, the partnership didn't work out, and then I was back on my own. And I never really grew it again right now. I'm just being on my own, part of it because I have 4 kids, and, it's a lot of time, actually, when you have people, because you're out there, you're working on the job site, but then you're also doing all the paperwork, and you're managing, and you're doing all the stuff, and I'm like, I'll just be on my own, and when the kids are pretty much graduated, then I'll reevaluate.
So if I hire you, I would generally, when I tell my clients that they're going to hire a handyman, I always tell them, get your whole list together, because most of you charge by the hour.
Yeah, generally I charge by the hour, because it is a lot of little things. Like if you want me to bid on that, I have to I have to figure out I'm going to be this. I find worst case scenario. I haven't opened your wall yet. I haven't done the right. So I have to go for worst case scenario. So what I might be able to do for $25 becomes $100, because there could be this, and this, and I have to assume for that. So a lot of that stuff, just get the list of the small things and just let's go by the hour.
If you're hiring a handyman, you want to get your whole list ready. All the little stuff, all the little, maybe some molding that needs to be repaired, the little things along with the big projects. Get it all ready for them so that they can bid out the whole project. And they might even give you a better deal if they're doing a whole day's work as opposed to an hour or two's worth of work.
And less travel time.
Yes.
So I will let everyone out there know, Michael, I know, is incorporated. He is insured. And there's a lot of amateur handymen out there that are going to maybe promote themselves out on Facebook or social media. They're not licensed. They're not insured. If your house burns down, there's nothing you could do against them. If they get hurt on your property, you are liable. Let me repeat that. If I come on your property to get paid, I get hurt on your property, I have no insurance, I can sue you. So it's really important for everybody to know to hire someone, you know.
Yeah.
that
Do your
really-
research.
Yeah,
Research.
and ask.
Yeah, it's it really becomes a claim on your homeowner's insurance, whatever it is, and then the homeowner's insurance generally decides if they're going to go after the person or
But-
not. But it's grievance that you didn't have to deal with if you would have
This
just.
is
Right.
why, you
It's
know,
been around.
as we were just talking, the light bulb went off. It's like there's a reason you've been doing this for so many years, and even though you went back to being a handyman, where you know you had a couple other hats you wore, you did it right.
Yeah.
And when you walked into my condo, you did it right, and you treated me well.
Yes, and he's a better electrician than he knows.
Shh, don't tell his wife.
Oh, she was there when I freaked out. We're still laughing about the GFI in the hallway
Yeah, GFI in the hallway, first
with
bathroom.
no water around.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
Want to be extra safe. That's
Yeah, I it just kind of baffled me why they did that in that bathroom.
We'll never know.
all. So, how can people reach you if they want help or they just need their faucet fixed? I don't know.
Call or text 847-878-6763. Yeah, I'll get to the phone.
And of course,
Book
we'll have
conversation,
all of Michael's contact information in our show notes as well. And we're so glad that you joined us today on Help Nobody Told Me.